Let's use a responsive gallery in PowerApps to make a tab interface. So what we're going to do today is we're just going to talk about responsiveness. We're going to build ourselves a component. We're going to put some containers inside there. Inside the containers, we're going to do a gallery, and then we're going to make it dynamically sized, and we're going to build a little tab interface with it so that way we can have tabs that work on both sizes, right? And the idea here is that responsive is just kind of a quest. It's an ongoing set of knowledge that you kind of build in order to tackle different responsive problems. So that's what we're going to do today. That sounds like fun. Then let's switch over to my desktop and take a look. Let's start by looking at what I built in my kind of practice run to get an idea where we're headed. So if we hit play here, we're going to see that when the app is in mobile phone size, that you can see it's tall and skinny, right? And the icons up here, they got a little bit smaller. If we switch the app into a browser size to my window, it gets much bigger, right? And the cute little pictures of the dog, yeah, there or whatever. But then if we kind of jump, if we go to different tabs, we go to the bus tab, we go to the airplane tab, whatever one we're in, it is going to automatically update itself. And so that's what we want to build. We want to kind of put all that together. I know the pictures are silly, right? I like silly pictures, but I've done this same type of thing for forms or for controls or, galleries, like whatever information, like what's down here doesn't matter. The mechanics is all about what we're going to build up here. Okay. So let's build it. All right. So we'll start with a new screen and just a nice blank screen. Now you'll want to make sure that if you're doing responsive, that you've got your settings set, and then on the display, I'm going to the wrong place. Right here, we've got scale to fit turned off, right? All the settings should look like this. That's a key one. And if you've never done responsive at all, then maybe you should watch that video up there. That's kind of more of an introduction in responsiveness. I'm assuming you've got some familiarity and you're just looking to kind of learn to build something a little bit harder. So what we're going to do here is we're actually going to build this thing as a component. So we go here to components, right? I've already got the other ones I've built. I've practiced a little bit because it was a struggle for me to build this. That's why I decided to make it into a video. And so we're going to start here by setting the size of this thing to 1366 by 100 because that's the size of your screen or a standard screen. And then we're going to end up coming back and kind of fiddling with that in a bit, right? But so that kind of starts us. Now, when you go here, the first thing you want to do to make your life a lot easier is you go ahead and going to put a container here. So even though we have the screen and we can make it kind of change, having a container in the mix just makes things easier. So I'm going to do an insert and I'm going to go down here and I'm going to insert a horizontal container. I'm only going to put one thing in the container even, but it doesn't matter. It makes the testing a lot easier. Now, when you add a container, remember they always have the drop shadow over here in the bottom right. So you want to turn that to none and you just want to get that out of the way so it doesn't sneak up and get you later. And you're like, why am I getting these weird fuzzy lines? It was a drop shadow. For the width of this, what we want to do is we're going to say, hey, your width is parent.width. All right, because whatever the size of the width the component needs to be, we want to do that. We want to drag it over here to the left, right? Its X should be 0. Oh, right, we'll just change that manually over here. It's fine. Okay, so there it fits that way. Also, don't forget to do height. And once again, I think we're going to probably revisit some of this, but right now this is what we're rocking with. So we'll just do parent.height. So now we have a container that's set to be the size of the component because we add the component to the other screen, we'll be able to resize that, right? And now what we want to do inside here is we're going to insert ourselves a gallery. So we're going to insert a horizontal gallery, right? One that scrolls left to right. And then what I want to do is I'm going to go over here and I'm going to change the layout to be blank. And I'm going to set the height to be 100, right? Because that's our current size. Because you kind of want to build this thing, like what you're going to see here is we kind of build it to work just non-responsively, but with the responsive pieces. And then we kind of come and bolt the responsive back in because that's the natural progression, right? That's how I figured it out when I wrote it the first time. Okay, so then in here, we're now going to go in and we're going to say, all right, gallery. So your height's 100. And then your, actually, you know what? Your height should not be 100. Your height should be parent.height, which is 100. But see, I told you, I'll probably make some mistakes on the way. Okay, and then the width is going to be parent.width, right? We want this thing to be as wide as parent. So then once again, as the container rescales, which is going to rescale the component, it's going to just kind of follow suit. Now we're going to go in here. Now, if you click in here, right? So this is the template, right? This is that first row. I'll actually just put some items in here real quick so we can kind of easily see this. So we'll go gallery, we'll go to items. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to make a dynamic table because, right, I want to make a table of the resources. I want to be able to easily change it. So we're going to use a table function. And inside the table function, we have records and we have, we'll call it title. And we're going to set this to airplanes and we'll do a comma here. And then we're going to say my icon, right? I don't ever use like reused words. And so then for this, we're going to do icon.airplane. Okay, so that'll make a record for that. We'll do another comma and we're just going to copy this. So I don't have to type all of it again. Copy, paste, and paste. And then we'll do that. So that would be 3 with that in there. But then of course we want to change this one to be cars. And that'll be icon.cars. And then for this one, I think we want to do bus. I want to do ship, but they don't have that. It's weird. I don't know why. And then there we go, bus. So we've got our table, right? There's 3 in there. So, and we can just see that works. So if we inserted a label here, right? They're all there. Okay, we don't want a label though. What we want is a button like so. Okay, now if you look right now, you see the dotted lines around. So that's your template size. And so what's happening here is if we look over on the right, if we click on our gallery and we look, we're going to see in our gallery, we've got a template padding of 5 and we want to set that to 0. So that'll get rid of the padding and that'll become very important later. You can have a 5 pixel space when you try to make your tabs, it won't work. And then also here for the width of the template, right? So when we usually go here, we set template size. So in a vertical gallery, that's going to be the height. But in a horizontal gallery, template size is the width. And so right now there's some crazy formula here. I don't want all that. What I really want to do is I want to set this to be 100. So we'll set it to 100. Okay, so right now they're all 100. And then obviously the buttons are all freaked out because they're like, that's not big enough because the buttons themselves, their width's 100 or 160. So actually, you know what we don't want to do is 100. We'll do this at, we'll do 200 for the moment. And then we'll grab our button and we're going to kind of drag it here at the bottom, right? We're going to take our button and we're going to set its title to be, or its text to be this item dot title. So now it says airplane, cars, and buses, and then they're all separated, right? If we were to add another thing to that table, it would add another button. So we have the ability to add as many tabs as we want by just updating the table, right? They're not hard-coded. Okay, I like that. We're also gonna go ahead and insert up here an icon. Now, if you're thinking, Shane, why did you put an icon? So 3D printing icon for a second. And we're gonna kind of drag it up a little bit, something like that. And then we're gonna set the icon to be this item.myIcon, right? Okay, now the reason I put those up there is because I wanted you to have a second thing in your tabs. Right, you might have an image, maybe you're using icons with a new button icon things like I just want you to have 2 pieces to have to fiddle with here. So, you know, in reality, like when I build this, I typically don't have the icons up there, but that's what we've got right now. I'm also, you notice like they kind of touch the buttons. And so I want the controls to touch the buttons, but not them themselves. So what I'm gonna do is go here to the padding for the icons, and we're just gonna set the top and the bottom to 5. And so then now they are 5 pixels off the edges, right? Giving them that balanced feel without touching, right? In its most simple form, this is kind of working, right? If we went back over here and went to our screens and we went to our, hit this to make it resize, and we inserted ourselves the custom component 3, that's the one we just built. There is our component. Now, but if we hit play, right, it's not set up to be dynamic. It's not resizing in any way yet, but at least we've kind of got the foundation going. Now, one of the pieces of that we can do is we'll go here to this component itself, right? The component once we've added it, and its, you know, height is 100 and its width is 1366, right? Because that's the size of the screen. And that was the default size. What we're gonna do is we're just gonna change this and say, hey, I want you to be parent.width and your height to be, we'll leave that at 100 for a second. If we hit play and test again, right? Now this still doesn't do what we want it to do, but, you know, at least it's, you know, it's behaving a little bit different, right? It's trying to figure things out. Back to here. So now what we need to do is we need to work on how do we make this thing fit better when it is in this scenario where, you know, we want it to be smaller, right? If you remember this one, let's go back over here. So if we go back to our first screen, like when I was here, notice that the buttons are smaller than if I switch to a tablet size. Oh, no, not tablet size, the Windows size, canvas size, right? So big buttons, mobile phone, little buttons. So how are we doing that? We're actually just going to write formulas to do that. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back over here to our component, and we're going to be like, all right, cool. You kind of did what I wanted. Oh, that's the one where it works. Go back to this component. So what we want to do here is we want to write a formula that makes all this a little bit more dynamic. And so like if we look at our buttons here, today their width is 160. Now, what if I want that to shrink down when it is a smaller interface, right? Which would probably make sense. So let's say we want those to go down to half size. So what we're going to do is we're going to say something like this. We're going to say if parent.width, right? And who's its parent? It's the gallery. So if the parent's width is less than 1,000 pixels, right? So if it's skinnier than 1,000, like a phone would be, then what I want you to do is I want you to be 80. And if not, I want you to be 160. So right now it's the same. if we switch back over here and then we say play, notice that it shrank up. Now, the rest of the stuff hasn't moved, so it still doesn't look right, but the buttons got smaller. And that's because the number of pixels here is smaller. And what you could do if you wanted to see it, I found myself doing this a lot when I troubleshoot, is I might just go in the gallery again and say, hey, I want to insert a label. And then in here, I just said, hey, show me parent.width. And so then this gave me, a number. So then that way you can see that when we go back over here, right, still 1366, but when we hit play, so right now it's only 375 wide. So that's my criteria. And so maybe knowing that this is only 375, maybe I should have used a smaller number like 500, right? Like, I'm not saying you should copy what I'm building here one for one, but you should be using it to understand what's going on, right? That's the whole point of this exercise. Okay, so now if we go back over here, so that got that set, and we know that this formula, we're gonna use this a lot. I'm not gonna lie to you, right? So we're gonna grab this, copy it, and one of the places we might use it is right here in size. So right now the font size was 15. Airplane actually took up 2 lines because it was too long of a word. So what we could do is go here, say, hey, if parent width is less than 1,000, then do 10. If not, do 15. And so then once again, if we switch back over, as soon as we hit play, now we've got airplanes written in a smaller text font, right? We're kind of doing okay there. We also then probably want to do the same type of thing for its height. So if we go to the button and we say, hey, your height right here, so it's currently 40, maybe we want to do something like 30 or 40. You've got to find the right ratios for what looks right for you. Goodness knows you probably don't want to be taking, design advice from me, but mechanics advice is pretty good. But right, you can see that looks pretty natural, right? Other than now there's too much space between the buttons. All right, well, we can fix that, right? So back over here. And so we know that this is the template size, right? We talked about that before. And so right now it's 200. So let's just try cutting it in half. So we'll just do our same type of formula. We'll say, if it's that, do it 100. If not, it's 200. And so then now we're back over here and we hit play. Okay, like this feels better, right? So now we know we need to get these guys over. Hey, remember, if you're enjoying this, you can go over to training.poweraapps911.com, sign up for one of my training classes. I got live classes, on-demand classes. Heck, you can either go to the YouTube library and you can download this whole working app. So if you want to download this thing so you can go play with it, you can do that over there. All right, so go check it out, training.poweraapps911.com. Back to the video. So for our airplanes, I really just want them to be in the middle all the time. So that's gonna be one of your most popular formulas. Right? Everyone kind of starts with this formula, but to center that, what do we want to do? Well, we're gonna say, all right, your X is going to be what? Parent.template width divided by 2 minus self.width divided by 2. And so what that does is says, hey, whatever the full size was, right? 200, cut in half to 100, that put the left edge in the middle, and then subtract half of the button, which put the middle in the middle, right? But if that's all working correctly, now if we hit play, all right, I don't feel like that did what I wanted to do. Let's see. That works. That works. Okay, so it didn't do exactly what we wanted. What did I do wrong? Well, let's go look. Oh, you know what I did wrong? I put the formula on that silly label. So let's copy that off. Control A, Control X. I told you I was gonna mess up. Let's just delete that label. We don't need it right now. Let's go to the actual icon. Let's set its X. See, I told you, like this is normal, right? Like building responsive it's whack-a-mole. It's, do a little bit test, do a little bit test, do a bit of test. What did I do wrong? Well, at least because you've been testing all along, it's pretty quick to know where the problem must lie, right? So let's double check again. We'll go here and play. And look at that. Our little icons are in the middle, but you know what? Who's not in the middle? My buttons. Yeah. So back over here. And the good news is that if we go to its X, it's actually that same formula, right? And now 15th time's a charm, maybe? Oh, look at how cute that is. Yay. Okay. Now the other thing I don't like here is I feel like these these icons are a little too big. So once again, we'd kind of go and attack them with the same type of thing, right? So they have height and width properties. And so maybe instead of just saying, hey, you're always 60, maybe we're going to do something like, if parent width is 100, then we'll do 40. If not, we'll do 60. And if that's what we're going to do for the height, right, we want to keep them square. So then we go here to the width. I don't know, I probably say that word wrong. something like that. And so now if we switch back over here and hit play, okay, all right, those look a little bit more size appropriate, but now we got some dead space between here and here. So then what we could do is we'll go back here to our buttons and we'll say, hey, buttons, your Y property is going to be icon 4, right? That's the icon's height plus icon 4's Y, right? And the reason I do that, I realize it didn't change anything because its Y is currently 0, but that way, just in case you start fiddling with the Ys on those, it would also, adapt. But now if we say play, oh, I don't hate this. I don't hate this at all. But here's the challenge, okay? So I know there's something broken. So if we're here on our screen 2, now I want to put this, now we've kind of started to get this closer. I want to put the screen as a component as well, right? So we're going to say insert, or a layer, a container. Words are hard, people. So we're going to throw a vertical container on here. And then I'm going to grab my component, Control X, paste it inside here. And then we'll take this guy and make it the size of the screen. But we don't really want to make it the size of the screen that way, right? What do we want to do? We want to go back here and say, hey, your width is what? Parent.width, whatever the screen size is. And what is your height? Parent.height. So if we hit play, everything should still work the way it did. Okay, that's good. The reason I did this though is now, right, to start to work on getting a little bit tabbier feeling, we're going to insert ourselves a rectangle inside the container. So make sure you got your cursor in the container. Insert a rectangle. So it goes at the bottom here. Now I'm going to say, hey, your width is going to be, you can just use this little setting that makes it all the way across. And then for your height, I want your height just to be like 25. It's sitting on top of that. Notice that we kind of got the roundedness of the buttons. All you got to do is go back over here to your button. And then we're going to say, hey, button, you have something called your radius, right? That's the little circle radius edges. So take the radius bottom left and make that 0. And then take the radius bottom right and make that 0. And then now if we go back over here, okay, so that gives it that tabby connection, right? The reason I want to introduce this at this point, right, that looks good. If we hit play, oh, right, what happened? Because this is shorter and this is shorter, this has gotten smaller. So what we really need is our component to get smaller as well. Now, what do we want the component to be? So what I need to do is go back over here real quick and remind myself. So what was the height of this? I don't remember because I don't remember anything. So 40 when it's small, so that's 40. And what's the height of this when it's small? It would be 30. So 40 and 30 is 70. So we need to go back over here and say, hey, Mr. Component, your height, which is currently 100, we want to use our same formula. If parent width less than 1,000, then I want you to be 70. And if not, I want you to be 100. Okay, so this still looks the same like it should. And if we say play, see? And the whole reason that we put this in a container, or we wanted several reasons, but remember the container just automatically makes this rectangle go wherever the component stops. So when the component got shorter, the rectangle moved up and it all connected. So I didn't have to wire or write a bunch of formulas there. Now, another thing, if you've got a really keen eye, it's probably hard to tell in video, but there you can see a line between the bottom of the button and the rectangle. And so the reason for that is it's actually the button's border. So if we go back over here to our button and we say, hey, your border color, right now it's at 15% fill, change, fade, whatever. And that's what's causing it. So all we're going to do is we're going to say, hey, all I want you to be is self.fill. And so that makes the border color the same as the rest of it. So now when we're back over here, when we're in, you don't see the line as much. When you hover, obviously, right, because it changes, you're going to see it, but it blends in a lot better in that scenario. Other things that I've had to do, if it's not cooperating, well, in one of my passes, I ended up coming in here and putting a rectangle over the bottom of this. So I got out of the container and I went here and I inserted a small rectangle in here. And then I took it, right, and I'm going to set its height. I guess manually set its height over here to 5. And then I set its width to 1366 and then set its X to be 0. And then its Y, I want it to be at the bottom. And so what we're going to do for the Y is we're just going to say, I want you to be parent height minus self height, something like that. And then I'm going to do like a +3. Okay. And the reason for that is you'll end up, if you end up with like white lines between things, sometimes if you have the control, like in this case, we're using the rectangle to like hide the bleed, have it go off the edge, it is going to not end up with this little white line, right? So let's look at that. And so now if we go here and we say play, we've got a much tighter looking interface here. Now, and that's one of those ones, like just depending on how you build it, I've kind of had to play with. Another thing you could do is if you are not in a scenario where you're using like containers, I've used -1 to make it like go up, like so have the one from underneath kind of come over the top. So there's just little fiddle things like that you can incorporate to make it, work better, right? So don't be afraid to try things. But a lot of times like laying rectangles in both places, they'll meet up nicer and then they can hide things like the buttons. The other thing you might notice if you're really looking good, now if you hover in there, you'll see that there's a little line below it. Well, that's because the hover border color is not the same as the rest of it. So then that's causing, that little bit of difference look. So then maybe what you end up doing is going back over here again. And then you're like, all right, well then is there a hover border color? There is. And so then what we're going to do, you're just going to change this to be self.hoverfill. So now that is, it's all nice and self-referencing. So now if we go back over and play, when you hover, you don't get the white line because the white line was really the border, right? Like that's one of the big keys of this video is you got to think about all the little pieces. You need to have that knowledge in your head that there's things like hover colors and border colors and messing with all those pieces. But as you get it, all these problems become not insurmountable, right? Like, I don't know, what are they, surmountable? Who cares? Okay. So speaking of colors, one more thing I want to do with colors. You'll notice over here, like right now, when I click on these different ones, like we're not seeing different colors yet. We want to know which tab we're on, so we got to kind of color code that to do it. So before we try to color code it though, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my buttons and I'm going to say, hey, when they click on you, right? So that's on select. I want you to set var a tab. So I just made up a variable called a tab to the text. So if I click on this one, I'll set it to airplane, click on this cars, this one to buses. Now, in order for that variable to be available everywhere though, you've got to click on your component. So component 3 for me, and then say access app scope. This lets the variables go through the components. Hey, but now that I've turned that on, if we go back over here, and we're just going to go onto my little screen in my container, we're going to insert ourselves a label real quick, and we're going to say, hey, you, show me var a tab. It's blank right now. But if we click on cars, it says cars, airplanes, airplanes, buses, bus, right? So that's showing you that the variable button works. So now that you understand how that works, hopefully, then what you can do is you go back over here and we're going to say, hey, I want your display mode, right? So display mode is, it can be either edit, disabled, or view. In this case, we want to use edit or disabled because we don't want to be able to click the tab throwing on the tab, right? So we're going to do something like this. We're going to say if var a tab equals self.text. So, right, that's each button looking at itself, right? Remember, because we're building this in a gallery and everything's dynamic, all your formulas have to be dynamic. Then we're going to say, all right, if it's that, then I want you to be disabled. If not, I want you to be in edit mode. And so now because bus is currently selected, it's grayed. We don't want to have it gray, but we can now see that that one's different. And if we just jump back over here again, hold down the Alt key, right, as we press each one, the different ones gray out. What I want to do though, is I now want to make this look nice, but because we're using disabled, we now have disabled fills, colors, all these things. So for example, disabled color, what you're going to do is you're going to set the disabled color to be self.fill, right? Because we want it to be the opposite. And then you'll set disabled fill to be self.color, like so. And then you'll set disabled border color to be self.fill. So now, if we decide to change the colors of any of this stuff, the reflection here just will happen automatically because we're all just very self-referencing. But once again, if we switch back over here and we hold down Alt so we can click on these, now they look a lot more tabby than they did before, right? Tabby, is that a thing? I don't know, right? And more importantly, double check yourself periodically, right? Let's go ahead and hit play. And so make sure that it looks like we'd expect over here, like it's working in this mode as well. Because it's real easy, as you've seen before, to like all of a sudden get the spacing off or something. Not saying colors, probably not, but periodically be, double and triple checking yourself, right? But this feels good. So all that's left now that we've got working resizing tabs, now we could just go over here just to finish out kind of the demo I'd done before. We could go here and insert whatever content we wanted, right? So in our case, I used an image control. I then set its line and container to full, so it was full width. And then I also will set its height to be flexible height, so it uses whatever space is left. And then I can just set a simple image of Buddy driving to begin, and I'll change that to fill, so it uses up all the screen real estate. And if we hit play, right? I mean, it's not changing yet, but that looks like it should. If we rotate it, looks good, good. All right. Over here, tablet, sure. Okay, so then what do we need to do? Last but not least, we need to make this image dynamic. And so for that, we're going to use a switch function. Switch is just like writing a bunch of nested ifs. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to say switch on var a tab. And then we're going to say if it is cars, right? That's one of the tabs. Then we want to show Buddy driving, right? Which is right there. And so I would typically write this like this. So that's saying that one. We'll do a comma there. And then we'll say if it says bus, then we want Buddy bus. And then if it says airplane, do Buddy flying. All right. And so now it's just, once again, dynamic to that. And so if we hit play, as we switch and click, we get all the cute pictures. Oh, airplanes didn't work. What did I do wrong on airplanes? Well, let's look. I left off the S on airplanes, right? Text matters. There you go. And shout out to Copilot for all my great image work there. Hopefully this was fun, right? Like, once again, do I expect you to build this exact thing? No. But what I was trying to get you to look at was the mechanics of responsive, making a gallery responsive. You could even get crazier. You could put containers inside your galleries templates to make the insides of the insides responsive. I did that with manual formulas. Just kind of up to you what makes sense there. But lots of fun, lots of bells and whistles, lots of little knobs to turn. So hopefully you've enjoyed that. Questions, comments, other cool little things like this you'd like to see me build, leave them below. I am all ears. Also, if you're thinking, well, Shane, why don't you just use the tab component that comes with the new modern controls? Because the new modern controls are still not ready for usage, right? They're still in preview. And as you've probably, if you've ever tried to use that one, it is very, very limiting. So I want something that was, let me express myself. All right. And with that, I'm going to say thanks and have a great day.